Well, hello and welcome back to the Lamppost Listener. My name is Daniel.
I'm Phil.
And this is a podcast where we journey chapter by chapter through C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. This is chapter 6 of The Horse and His Boy, Shasta Among the Tombs.
Here we are. This is a very similar to the Lord of the Rings chapter where there's a lot of walking around.
I did get some vibes of what? Okay, this is embarrassing. The Barrow Downs in book 1 of the Lord of the Rings, where Frodo and the hobbits are going through. And there's like that arm that comes out. And you know what I'm talking about?
And pulls them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did feel some of that. Besides that, I'm gonna be honest. This is probably the least prepared I've ever been for one of our chapters.
Oh, this will be fun.
Is that a great way to begin a podcast? Like, hey, everybody, thanks for listening.
Part of it's by design, right?
Yeah, I mean,
the challenge for you this season is that you're not allowed to do as much research because you don't want to spoil anything.
Well, especially on a chapter like this. So this is a chapter where a lot of stuff doesn't happen. So I think there's an important interaction that does occur, but for the most part, there's very little dialogue, and there's only one character that appears, at least one named character that appears until the very last paragraph or so. And so this is a kind of chapter that in seasons past, I might really dive into some of the scholars, some of the authorship around, hey, what's happening here? Let's even just bring that in because there's maybe we're a little bit light on the content. So I started to do it. I picked up the Narnia Code, by Dr. Ward, and was like, this would be a great time to talk about the influence of Mercury upon this book. Started reading it, put it down after like maybe 2 paragraphs, saw a slight little spoiler. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to say it, but I was like, oh, okay, so we're not going to do that.
Right.
So I'm going to push some of our discussion on medieval cosmology into a future chapter when I come across the thing that has.
I didn't realize they had makeup back then.
I think the word you're looking for is cosmetology.
No, that's when you predict what your future is going to be.
Oh, my bad. That's right. So I say all of that, there's not a ton to unpack here, but I think we're still going to have a really great time because you and you recently finished watching The Mandalorian, so I figured just, do that.
There's 30 minutes right there.
Yeah. You didn't like it. You said you didn't like it. I know this has mostly been a dancing lawn conversation, but you said you weren't a huge fan.
I really liked a lot of parts, but overall, I was a little disappointed.
You said that the final episode.
I was very disappointed in the final episode.
Like it.
I did not care for that.
Well, I guess we'll save most of that discussion for the dancing lawn. We have been unpacking.
Yeah, you got to pay to hear that.
People are going to unsubscribe if that's what you're. But
here's the thing, though. I think that Star Wars, when you have that connection to your childhood, it's bound to be disappointing when you see stuff later. It happened to the generation before us, and that annoyed us because we were enjoying the prequels. Yeah. And now we're kind of the old farts doing that. Can you say that on the show? We just got an explicit
rating. The E next to our rating in the iTunes store. That's not what it's called anymore. Now we are showing they were old. Apple Podcast. That's what we. Yeah.
Yeah. iTunes store.
It is the iTunes store.
Do you want me to get your cane? But I think that there are a lot of really cool moments, and I think that a lot of people are having fun, and it's so enjoyable to see them trying some stuff out that we've always imagined happening in the Star Wars universe. Now they have the time and the budget and enough of a fan base to do it, and I'm really excited about that part.
A question that came up on the dancing lawn was, are you going, not you, I think it was, we talked about like, are we going to keep watching? I said, season 3 for me, I'm not going to get my whole spiel. I already did that back in, I don't know when this episode is being released, so probably a while ago at this point, but that I'm really happy that other people are enjoying it. And one of my least favorite things when you talk about or just commentate on various things of pop culture is people just kind of ragging on something for the sake of doing that. So a lot of people are really enjoying The Mandalorian, and I'm really happy that even my students, a lot of my students really into it. Went to a birthday party this past weekend. Baby Yoda's everywhere.
Yeah.
the child, Grogu, spoiler, but whatever, it's a name, all over the place. And it's great. Like 3 kids had Baby Yoda shirts, and I loved it. I'm happy they're all they had little Grogu goodie bags. And it was a Star Wars birthday party, and it was great. And I was so happy that people are into it. So I don't want to sit here and say about all the things I disliked. I will say I'm not sure if I'm going to watch season 3, although I wish it the best success into the future. Tell us, are you gonna keep watching?
I think so, just because I do want to see more stuff be made. I'm really excited if they ever do a Rian Johnson trilogy where he gets to do something completely removed and not connected to the Skywalker family.
Sure.
I think that'd be great.
He's got 50 Knives Out movies you got to do first.
Yeah.
You saw he sold the 2nd and 3rd movie to Netflix for
oh wow,
an insane amount of money.
Man, they're making 4, maybe 5 more Avatar movies.
I did know that. Yes, James Cameron is making many of the. They also have all the names out. Sometime in the show when you're talking, I'm gonna not listen to you. I'm gonna look up the names of the new Avatar movies just to share them with you, because they're all not great. They're not great. They're really, really cool if you're a 5th grader. That's, you know what? That's insulting to our 5th graders. They're really cool if you're 5th grade me. Okay, I'll just insult myself. Yeah. 5th grade me thinks they're incredible titles. Again, I've never seen the first one, but...
you haven't seen the first Avatar?
No, I never saw it.
Huh. Did you see Pocahontas?
Yeah, so I feel like I've gotten the... I feel like I got it, again, not for me. I'm happy that other people really like it. I don't like wearing the glasses in movies. Sorry. I just,
Do you know they've been waiting for this whole time? Why it's taken... the last one came out in 2009.
Yeah, but it's always taken James Cameron. The movie before that was 97's Titanic. He always takes 12 years.
Well, that's because he used all his money to go deep sea diving. And that's
that's true.
What this is connected to. So he got really into that, and he really wanted to do underwater motion capture.
Yeah.
And the technology just wasn't there yet. And he keeps waiting, and now it looks like it's finally there, and he's talking about when the movies will come out.
Has he visited the Titanic before? I feel like he's gone with Robert Ballard.
He had to have, right?
The guy who discovered it, or the wreckage.
Yeah.
I feel like he has been down there. That stuff's so cool. When I was, let's say, you and I would have been 7 years old when Titanic came out, and I wasn't allowed to go see the movie. It was PG-13, and I got really into the Titanic without being able to watch the movie. And so I got really into Robert Ballard because he was, you could go watch, there were all these picture books, not based on the movie, but based on the Titanic itself or the exploration of the Titanic and, finding the wreckage. I think that was the late 80s that happened. And I was really into that.
Yeah. I do remember, I read something about how James Cameron really wanted to work. Mm-hmm. Some of the budget was to go to the dive site and get actual footage of it. So I'm sure he was there at some point.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Again, another movie. I've never seen all of it.
Yeah. Have you watched the Terminator films?
I've seen part of the first one.
Wow. Okay. I feel like for those of you at home listening and who aren't at Daniel's house, Daniel is going through this phase of watching really old movies and weird foreign films with weird titles and stuff. So I think that eventually you're going to get to Terminator 2, which is a classic. You have to watch that one just to understand where stuff started.
And I don't remember why I didn't watch all of Terminator. I haven't seen the last 30 minutes of it. I enjoyed it for the most part. You and I being born in the 90s, I don't hold 80s pop culture as high as people born 10 years before us. Mm-hmm. But I still really like a lot of it. And I did enjoy the Terminator, the first one that I got to see. But we're really off topic right now. Do you think we should go talk about the Chronicles of Narnia?
Sure.
So it is an even chapter, Shasta Among the Tombs. And that means you have the chapter summary. Would you like to go ahead and do that for us?
Here it is. Running through the hills of Tashbaan, Shasta sees a desert for the first time. After working his way through a crowd and the city gates, he finds himself alone with nothing but endless sand and mountains ahead of him, and to his left, the tombs where he is to meet his traveling companions. Unfortunately, his companions are not there. That night, he thinks he sees a lion, but after a second look, becomes convinced it was a dream, and that the only thing in front of him is a cat. After several days of waiting, the boy is ready to give up and head on alone. But right before sunset, he spots Bree and Hwen. As they come closer, the boy is shocked to see them being led by an unfamiliar man. Shasta hides as he tries desperately to figure out a course of action.
All right. So the 4 Avatar sequel titles are Avatar. I have no idea if that was...
Finish that. It's
I have
not
no
just
idea
Avatar.
if your summary was good or not. But the 4 Avatar sequel titles are Avatar: The Way of Water, Avatar: The Seed Bearer, Avatar: The Tolkien Rider, not J.R.R. Tolkien, it's Tulkun, and last but certainly not least, Avatar: The Quest for Iwa, not Enya, Iwa.
Huh.
How you feeling about those?
I feel about the same as finding out that there are going to be 4 more of them.
The Way of the Water
when
is
he
not
has
terrible.
catering for his crew, it's all vegan.
Really?
I
Is
think
he a
so.
vegan?
At least at some point, I'm sure.
You know a lot about James Cameron.
I do. I think that James Cameron does some really amazing stuff. And remember when we were at the C.S. Lewis International Symposium?
Oh, he was there. I forgot. We sat next to him. He was really into. He's a big Lewis fan.
Turns out he's a Presbyterian. No,
Yeah.
he's actually very antagonistic against Christianity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
but
yeah,
he
yeah.
keeps telling the Christ story over and over again in his movies.
Got him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot
Dr.
about
Jerry Root. Look up his talk on YouTube.
Oh, that's right. Dr. Root did that, right.
From the symposium. It's
Yeah.
out there for free.
I'll post it in the
put it in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah. So there you have it. 4 Avatar titles. I
And
don't know what happened.
I
in the
managed
chapter,
to bring
but
it back. I connected it to Narnia.
No, your summary was good. So before we kind of walk through this one little bit at a time, what was your initial reaction having read this chapter?
Yeah, so we've mentioned this before, but it's hard to take a single chapter and dissect it as much as we are and have every chapter be full of a lot of action, because that's not how books are written. This is kind of a quiet chapter in between what I think will be quite a bit of action on either side. And I enjoyed that. I like it when there's a bit of a respite. And you don't want to have a character waiting and have a bunch of action going around, because then you won't feel the desperation or the want to be around people or the want to have your companions. They're not quite friends yet, but to have your companions back. And I think this chapter serves its purpose, and we feel what Shasta is feeling. And it's a quieted chapter, and it's not an action-packed chapter, and it's not boring in that it's boring to read, but you definitely empathize with how bored he may be just waiting around. And you understand why at a point he decides, I'm going to just leave.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're coming.
That is very insightful, Phil. And, my thoughts are kind of in the same vein, because, I don't want anyone hearing this, or even you, Phil, to think that, I'm saying, I'm not prepared anything to mean I didn't like it. Because actually, I really enjoyed this chapter, despite the fact that, like you said, not a lot of, plot happens. There's not even a lot of, character development. It's very atmospheric, though. And I think as a reader, we're able to feel the fear and isolation that Shasta has as he is traveling between Tashbaan and these tombs, and then looking out across the desert. And in that way, also because I can't think of another chapter that is this isolated or centered around just one character. We've always, up to this point with the last 4 books, had at least 2 characters from our world, children from our world, go into Narnia. We've never just really followed one singular protagonist. And here we are with chapter 6. I know Aravis is a human. Well, actually, I don't know that she's human. I assume that she's human. That I don't know. Wait, are the Kellermans humans?
I feel like they are.
I still get confused with this, because the Telmarines are humans, because didn't they come into Narnia technically through our world, and they had that weird they landed on an island that brought them to Narnia, so that's how they are technically humans. Yeah. But I don't think we've learned enough about the Kellermans. I mean, they're obviously
humanoid.
Yeah, they're human-like, definitely. Yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that they are human. Despite the fact that we know that there aren't a lot of humans in Narnia. I guess the only humans in Narnia right now are the 4 Pevensies.
Yeah,
in the kingdom of Narnia, not this magical
land.
land.
And then there's talk about how only man can rule Narnia, or is supposed to rule Narnia. So I wonder what would happen if someone from Tashbaan
were
to go there and try to conquer.
Yeah, I don't know. maybe this is something that I'll learn by the end of this book. I don't know.
This is why it really helps to have characteristics like gills or some webbing or anything that makes you definitely not.
You would know better than.
You don't want to assume they're human.
Okay.
Because you know that they have a tail or fur or wings.
Well, I don't think Erebus has any of those things.
That's been described.
Nor does Shasta. Wait. Shasta, though, if he is from Narnia, he'd have to be human. Okay, no. Here's my theory. I'm gonna not save it for the end. I'm gonna change what I was gonna say. I think this proves that Shasta has to be from Archenland, because he can't be from Narnia because the only 4 humans we have in Narnia are the Pevensies. So he must be from Archenland.
Okay.
Remember, I think, was it last chapter I said that I think him and Corrin are going to be like long lost brothers or something?
That would make sense then.
So that's my. Have you read further in the book? Or have you finished it?
No, and it's making this conversation more enjoyable.
But you have read further than this.
I think I was surprised.
No, you haven't read.
Here's
past
my
this
quick
chapter.
explanation of what happened. I listened to the audiobook, but I was really, really tired when I did it. And I think I made it to chapter 7, but I definitely don't remember this chapter. And I read it a couple times in preparation for this, and it didn't feel as familiar.
So at this point, our loyal listeners who give, I don't know, about 40 minutes to an hour every 2 weeks to listen to us, they give up their time, are listening to 2 guys talk about a book that neither of them have read before.
No, we've read it now.
No, we've read it now.
Finished the whole thing.
Neither of us have any idea what happens next.
Right.
I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. I think it's fun, hopefully.
Here's what I kept running into. You kept saying things like you just said.
Yeah.
And I had to just nod, because if I gave any answer, it would give away whether or not it would feel like it gave it away.
Fair enough. That's true.
Also, people aren't giving up just that. No one's sitting there just listening. They're either driving or washing the dishes or dusting.
Wait, when you listen to audiobooks and podcasts, you don't just sit still?
One of my friends was just telling me that they had a friend who they gave up on audiobooks because they were just too bored. They said it's just weird to sit there and listen. They said you can do other things.
Every once in a while, if like a new record comes out that I'm really into, I'll sit. I'll put it on the record player, and I'll listen to it, and I'll just lay on the couch and listen. But even music, for the most part,
are you turning the record player on?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
No, I don't just let it spinning. It's not just sitting there,
And the needles on it.
Yes, it's all hooked up. It's not, But so that's okay. So that's what I'm thinking about with Shasta, is that he can't have been from Narnia. I think he's from Archenland. I can't remember how to pronounce it. Oh. But let's get back to the chapter though, because what I was saying about the atmosphere is that really Shasta's our only character who we've been with. We're in 6 chapters. Bree's been around a little bit. Same with Hwyn and Erebus, but not for a lot. Even Bree has been gone for the last, 3 chapters at this point? So we really are becoming, at least I am becoming, very attached to Shasta. And in a way that I haven't been attached to any of the characters before, I really appreciate that he's kind of a scaredy cat. No pun intended for the little cat we see here in this chapter. In this chapter, he's not necessarily extremely brave. He's very bothered by just even like the darkness at nighttime when the sun goes down. And I really like that. We often see a lot of our other characters in Narnia, with maybe the exception of Eustace, not be this kind of level of afraid. And so I really liked just this kind of like sense of impending dread that never came this whole chapter, that just kind of hovers over all of Shasta's thoughts as he's going about, even as he's leaving Tashbaan, going through the gardens and exiting the city. There's just this sense of like anxiety that I felt reading it. And I enjoyed that.
It also seems like an opportunity for him to grow, where maybe what he'll gain by the end of this book is courage, or the ability to kind of face that fear,
Sure,
and not let it control him as much.
Yeah. You brought your Kindle up here. Do you have something you want to read?
This is not a Kindle.
Sorry, you brought your Nook up here.
My Barnes and Noble Nook.
Good for you. Was there a thing you wanted to read?
I was looking ahead to see what else we were going to talk about, but I also saw several examples while I was flipping through of him.
Share some with us.
For example, he says, "Don't be a silly little coward," to himself. And I also recall that at the end of the towards the end of the book, we see that he looks at the tombs and he thinks, well, that's not as scary as I thought it was last night. So he's not only afraid at times, but he's also aware of the fear, and he's processing that fear afterwards.
Yeah, Shasta just is very insecure, and he's struggling with a lot of things. And knowing a little bit about his backstory and the relationship he had with, what was his dad's name? Arshis. Well, his fake dad.
His father. Well, it's not even a
no,
father
but he wasn't.
figure.
That was the thing. He wasn't.
Yeah.
He didn't even get treated well.
His guardian.
I'm sure that was a very traumatic experience for him, and also not being a Calorman himself, and then even finding out that, like, hey, that's not even your real family. He's got a lot of identity issues for what? Was he like 12 that he's going? I mean, this is a child who is being faced with some really difficult things, and you see that in a lot of his self-talk. His self-talk is kind of all over the place. Like he says, oh, like it's really not that bad, almost kind of encouraging himself. And then other times being like, oh, you're a little coward. He's very, his emotions are very unregulated, which is to be expected given the life he's had so far.
Right.
But I think all of that is very unique to his character. Even someone like Eustace, who is a brat, I wouldn't say he was emotionally unregulated. He was very much in control of himself. That control was just, it was annoying, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those, qualities of Shasta's character really come to the forefront here as he's just terrified of these large tombs that he's come across. Which I guess, should we get to the tombs? Do we want to talk about him leaving the city, or do you want to jump to the tombs?
Yeah, I imagine these gigantic rock structures, right?
Yeah. Did you have the little picture here?
I do. On my Nook.
They look like little silos, right?
Yeah. I get a little bit of a Easter Island.
Oh, yeah. There's like
feel
giant
from it.
heads there.
Yeah. I've always called it Easter Egg Island in my head, and I'm glad I didn't say that on the show.
Well, you just did. So,
Yeah, whoops.
and Pauline Baines, I'll put that in the episode description for our listeners. Great illustration. I love the colors here. I don't know if you can see that, Phil.
My Nook is in black and white.
Look at my computer right now, though. And it's
that's nice.
Really beautiful. The browns and the oranges here. This whole sense of being in a very un-Narnian place.
Looking at this illustration in particular, it takes me back to reading little, $2.99, $3.99 trade paperback copies of books that you may find on your parents' bookshelf or at your grandparents' house or something, where there's this kind of mystery to it, and you're looking at the pictures to kind of get a sense of what the world's like. Very high quality stuff.
Yeah,
in this one.
I really like it. Yeah, it's a great little image here, and I'm interested in these tombs. What do you think's happening with these tombs?
For a minute I thought maybe these are part of the ruins, but then I realized we're not 1,000 years ahead yet. We're still in the same timeline as Peter and Susan being there and growing up.
I get the sense, my idea is that this is some kind of like necropolis that we've got going on here, and this would, kind of make sense. Just 2 chapters ago, Tashbaan is not the cleanest and most hygienic city, correct? And so it would make sense that they kind of follow the tradition of some of the Greeks and the Romans, even in the Middle Ages, in Europe, and you also see this in Northern Africa and in the Middle East and the Arabian Peninsula, where you're going to be burying your dead outside of the city for a multitude of reasons, a big one being disease, right? You don't want the bodies to be inside a heavily populated area. So I kind of get the sense that kind of same logic that you see pretty much all throughout the ancient into the medieval world is the idea behind why we're burying these tombs, why we have these tombs such a distance outside the city. Not far. It's like, 5 minutes, right? Didn't he say it was a 5-minute walk?
Yes. And it's also curious because these are so large, it raises questions of how did they get there?
Yeah.
How did they move these incredibly large objects that far from the city? Or from wherever they are?
Yeah, and it's I have to imagine that these are not just kind of, normal civilians from Tashbaan, but instead that they are probably what's the Aravis and what's her family? What is the title that they're all given? Tarkeen. So maybe this is like a Tarkhan.
Tarkina.
Yeah. So maybe these are Tarkhans or someone even higher up in the social structure that has been buried outside of here. And again, this is just great. I don't know if this is just a kind of a one-time thing we'll see with these tombs, but it's just great world building that we're seeing with some of the culture of the Calormans that Lewis is showing us. I feel like we have a pretty decent sense, despite only being 6 chapters in, of some of the like social structures in a way that we haven't necessarily seen before.
Yeah, definitely one of the more elaborate things we've seen from Lewis.
So Shasta, he goes into these tombs and he's telling himself, don't be a silly little coward. And night falls. It's getting darker every minute is what Lewis writes. He's afraid of ghouls, right? And he is all of a sudden, he is startled by something that touches his leg. What is this thing?
Turns out to be a cat.
It is a little cat. It's a little cat. And as we move on, I see that I already answered. I totally forgotten this. It says that the tombs are the burial place of the ancient kings in that same paragraph where he runs into the cat. So there you go. Yeah. Did we read the book?
We just filled that question on a quiz.
But he does see what had touched him, Lewis writes, was only a cat. Shasta, I think correctly at this point, he says, I suppose you're not a talking cat. Now, I think this probably is a talking cat, but I don't think Shasta's incorrect in assuming that, hey, we're not in Narnia yet. You're probably a dumb beast. Forgive my language there.
So you think it is a talking dumb cat?
No, I think this is Aslan, and that technically, yes, it is a talking. It's not a talking beast like Bree or Hwyn. Wait, your face tells me you don't think this is Aslan.
I feel like you're sounding like the White Witch right now. You're calling Aslan just a cat. Next thing you're gonna want him shaved.
That's not the White Witch, anyways. That's the Lady of the Green Kirtle, and
no. She says he's just a great big cat.
Oh, she does say that too. You're right. Yeah. They both witches say that.
You think they're the same person?
We've never talked about it before, so why don't we take some time right now?
Yeah, spend another 40 minutes on that.
But no, I do think that what happens during the night, to me, makes it pretty clear that this is the Great Lion. Jokes aside, do you disagree?
I don't disagree. I just think it's funny that the cat hasn't spoken yet, but the cat stares at him. And I think that makes it more than just a dumb beast right off the bat. And then you add in the fact that Shasta sees a lion, and then he looks again and it's a cat. Well, there's only one person that we know has done that kind of thing before.
But Shasta doesn't know that, though.
Yes, Shasta doesn't know that, but we know Aslan.
So is this the kind of thing where, as readers, we should be picking up on the implication here, and we kind of have this knowledge that Shasta doesn't have because he's never even... I don't think the name Aslan's been mentioned at all in the book yet. And no, that's true. I think Bree mentioned it once, but Shasta doesn't know who Aslan is. He doesn't know anything about it, and he obviously knows what a lion is. But do you think we as readers are supposed to know at this point?
Yes, if we have read any other books.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's right.
If for some reason someone's starting with The Horse and His Boy, then
that's a tough place to pick up, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like that's the place you pick up when all the other copies are checked out from your school library.
That's like how it always is with my students when we go to the library. After we read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for the first time, and they all are like, I'm going to go check out, more Narnia from the library. And then, they race. A couple of kids get Prince Caspian. A couple of kids get Magician's Nephew. And it's like, all right, that's fine, And then there's, one kid who gets The Last Battle. And I'm like, you're not going to enjoy this. Same with, and then there's, one kid who gets The Horse and His Boy. I'm like, you can read this next. Because it does take place right after The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe chronologically. It won't mess anything up for you. But it will be weird. And then I always tell the kid with The Last Battle, just go put it back. It's just not
Here's one of my
enjoyable.
9 copies of the series.
Yeah. They can
take your pick.
Yeah. But so this cat, so Shasta sees this cat, but not too long after that, he goes to sleep. The cat kind of looks at him, it leads him into the tombs, right? But Shasta eventually decides to go to bed, not before wondering what has happened to Bree, Aravis, and Hwyn. But then he has a nightmare. Tell us about this nightmare.
Well, first he hears a noise. That's what wakes him up. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't hear it for a moment, and he thinks maybe that was a nightmare. But then he hears it again. And his first thought is, I hope it's not more lions.
Which is a fair thought. Yeah. Let me ask you this, though. Moo should ask Sarah Kozart about this, because neither of us are big animal people as far as like animal knowledge. I know you like animals, but you got very offended when I said that.
Some of the categories that I get put in.
No, just I've already given you the title. It's there. You can't get rid of it. We've said it on the podcast.
Ask me an animal question.
All right. There's no cats and lions in deserts, right?
Desert cats. I'm pretty sure it's a brand name.
No, I don't think there are.
I don't think they're usually cats, but they don't like water. So maybe they will.
No, you think that's why they go to the desert?
Yeah.
It'd be a good place for them. That can be your new cause. It's like, we need to go take all the cats.
Take cats to the
put them in the desert. They'll be very happy there's no water there. But should Shasta know that, like, is his fear of lying...
Is the Sahara a desert?
The Sahara's a desert, yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't Simba in the Sahara?
Most of that is sub-Sahara. So the Sahara Desert is northern.
Like underground?
What?
Is it like underground?
Yeah, all's underground. She didn't know that. Pride Rock, all the Lion King, actually takes place in a giant dome underneath the earth.
If you look closely at the sky, it's painted. It's not actually a real sky.
So most of those kind of if you're thinking of like African safari kind of thing, that's going to be beneath the desert.
Okay.
But I just below, south up. There you go. There's my cardinal directions there.
Below
south of the desert. So, but he is worried about more lions.
And it turns out it's not the cry of a lion or the roar of a lion. It's the cry of a jackal.
The cry of a jackal.
And this is an interesting point that the narrator makes here. It's a jackal, but Shasta wouldn't know what a jackal is. Mm-hmm. And if he did, he would probably just be afraid of it. Which is a weird thing. I'm curious why that's in there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, again, the narrator is trying to help us understand that Shasta lacks a lot of knowledge.
Yeah. In this same chapter, he mentions that he hasn't read.
Yeah, that's right. And so in the same chapter, we learned that Shasta's never read a book before, and I guess we can assume that he does not know how to read, or has never even had the experience or ability or
the opportunity.
To read. So again, this whole chapter is showing us Shasta's really, really, and I can't stress this enough, really out of his element here.
He really is. And I think that this is a great setup for some change to happen in his life, because we've already removed our hero from his, quote, comfortable. It wasn't really comfortable, but he was familiar with it.
Kind of the devil you know kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So it wasn't a great life, but he knew what to expect. Mm-hmm. Now he's out of that element. He's gone through the city. He's, in a way, got some supplies, but now he's on his own. He's had his companions removed, and he's scared. I also imagine it's cold.
The desert does get cold tonight. Yeah. So can I actually read a paragraph here?
Let's hear it.
So this is right when Shasta comes across this beast. Lewis writes, he was just going to run for it when suddenly, between him and the desert, a huge animal bounded into view. As the moon was behind it, it looked quite black, and Shasta did not know what it was, except that it had a very big, shaggy head and went on 4 legs. It did not seem to notice Shasta, for it suddenly stopped, turned its head toward the desert, and let out a roar which re-echoed through the tombs and seemed to shake the sand under Shasta's feet. The cries of the other creatures suddenly stopped, and he thought he could hear feet scampering away. Then the great beast turned to examine Shasta. Oh, it's a lion. I know it's a lion, thought Shasta. I'm done. I wonder, will it hurt much? I wish it was over. I wonder, does anything happen to people after they're dead? Oh, here it comes. And he shut his eyes and teeth tight.
What an intense scene.
It's a really great scene and a really beautiful display of Aslan's protection of Shasta here.
Yeah. When he roars,
he scares
the other
away.
creatures go quiet.
But it reminds us to the very famous line that Mrs. Beaver tells us, which is that, again, he's not safe. Do you know the reason these other creatures are afraid of him is because he's dangerous.
Yeah.
And those creatures recognize it. Again, we've talked a lot. Maybe we haven't talked enough about, how can you talk enough about it? About the idea of the fear of God, right? It's a good thing. The fear of God is good. And these creatures actually understand that. They understand that they should be afraid of this great lion. And Shasta actually does too, right? He knows this is something I should be afraid of. And I think that that's an important part, even though Shasta doesn't know anything about, and again, he doesn't know who Aslan is. He just thinks this is a lion. A lion. Yeah. But his fear is in the right place, and that shouldn't go away when he actually learns who Aslan is.
Right.
So right after this happens, he closes his eyes, right? That's the part I just finished reading. And then when he opens them, what does he see?
It's a cat.
It's a cat again.
And the transition is so smooth. He thought it was the size of a horse. Mm-hmm. And then he thought it was only half that size. And then he takes another look, and it's the size of a cat. Just the way that his perception is being played with here.
Yeah.
It really does feel like we're coming out of a dream state where you thought it was one thing, you shake your head, you clear it, and it doesn't immediately go back. It's not like a 1 second switch, but it's this transition, but it's a transition at a fast clip.
Mm-hmm. What do you think Aslan is up to right now? Besides, obviously, the very obvious protecting him from being eaten by other animals, what is Aslan doing?
I feel like this is a slow introduction to Aslan, where it is calibrated for Shasta in particular, where he's not going to come all at once and explain everything. He's going to have a few moments here and there from a distance, a little bit closer, and then eventually they'll probably meet face to face.
I think that's well said. It makes me think that maybe what Aslan is doing by, appearing as this cat to Shasta at both before and then after he scares the other animals away is just this kind of almost like this grace given to him of, or maybe just mercy of, not terrifying him. Like what's going to be a lot less scary? A little kitty cat, right? And so almost kind of meeting Shasta where he is. Kind of, obviously Aslan knows Shasta. Just because of his role as the great lion. And by knowing Shasta, he introduces himself in a way that is very just like kind. He could just show up as a lion, which he has done before. He did that to Jill in his own country at the beginning of Silver Chair, and it terrified her, obviously. Right. And he's not doing that to Shasta.
So what's so interesting to me about that is, for Jill, she was in the middle of demonstrating how brave she was. Mm-hmm. And he kind of checked her on that and showed up full force. You're so brave.
Oh, that's good.
Here I am. And I think that Shasta needs a different approach. And I was going to compare this to how the Lord meets us in different ways, where for some people, it's a moment here and there leading up to a relationship with the Lord. Mm-hmm. For other people, you're on your way to Damascus and you have a bright light, you lose your sight, and you have a voice speak to you.
I have heard this story. I
can't remember what the guy's name. He kept changing it, but yeah.
Its name starts with Saint, I think, actually.
Saint, yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know his last name. So finally the morning comes, and in the morning he has a decision to make. He's not going to make his decision until later on in the day, but he's got to make a decision, which is, what do I do next? He can see the mountains. He kind of has an idea of the direction of north to get to Narnia.
He even marks it.
Exactly.
He wants to be sure to know which direction to go.
And so the question is, does he go on alone or does he wait? And of course, he has no idea. We don't know what's happened to Aravis and Bree and Hwyn at this point. But he bides some time by going and stealing. What is Bree call it again?
Raiding.
Yeah. Getting just a little light raiding. Yeah. Stealing some food from
rhetoric matters.
Yeah. from a local farm. And then he does get back to the tombs, and what decision does he make?
Well, he starts to get anxious. He starts thinking things like, I can't wait here the rest of my life, kind of very much exaggerating. and he decides that he's about to pack up and just head out. He's got his pomegranate. Mm-hmm. He's got his melon. He's just going to go.
And so as he is preparing to leave, right before the sun sets, here's what C.S. Lewis writes. Before the sun set, something did happen. Shasta was sitting in the shadow of one of the tombs when he looked up and saw 2 horses coming toward him. Then his heart gave a great leap, for he recognized them as Bree and Hwin. But the next moment, his heart went down into his toes again. There was no sign of Aravis. The horses were being led by a strange man, an armed man, pretty handsomely dressed like an upper slave in a great family.
And you can just tell by the way Bree and Hwin are saddled and bridled, this is not the situation they were just in a few days ago.
No, and he even says, it seems like they've been caught and are maybe being taken somewhere too. Now, Shasta jumps to an interesting conclusion, one that I don't think I would have jumped to, which is that maybe it's because he's a preteen. There's that little bit of that self-importance there. And so he's like, this is all a trap for me. Right. Like, Shasta, nobody knows who you are.
A little bit of Admiral Akbar in there, too.
Like, dude, no one cares about you. Why? Like, this is not a trap for you. At least, watch it. I'm making this joke here, and watch it totally be a trap in the next chapter. But I have a sense it's not a trap for him. But his idea is they've already caught Aravis and they've tortured her. And again, he does not think highly of Aravis. He goes, "Oh, she's given us all away. Like this is all her fault.
Yikes.
She got caught. She's told everything, and now they've set up this trap with Bree and Hwin so that I'll get caught too."
And the chapter ends with him just trying to decide what to do. He's thinking all these things to himself, and he's braced behind the rock, and they're getting closer and closer. And he's not sure, do I jump out and talk to my horses, or do I stay here and let him go by?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, again, this little character beat. The very last sentence says he's wondering which was the least dangerous thing to do. He's not wondering what's like the right thing to do. He's not wondering what thing will help his friends. He's just wondering what's the least dangerous thing. And that kind of shows us, again, a lot about who Shasta is. It's not necessarily like, I'm going to help these horses because I think it's the right thing to do. It's what's the best thing for me right here. And I think that also tells us a little bit about his upbringing with his father and the kind of way that he was brought up.
Right. He hasn't had the opportunity to learn otherwise.
Yeah. And so that is really where the chapter ends, on this little cliffhanger maybe we'll find out more in the next chapter. I'm not sure, though. The next chapter, chapter 7, is called Aravis in Tashbaan. So maybe it's kind of this, we're going to go back in time and see what happened that led to that. Lewis has often done that in the Chronicles, which then means that you and I won't know what
for another chapter.
What happens for a little bit longer, which is kind of a bummer. But any final thoughts before we move on?
You won't. I can read ahead whenever
you can. That is true. You probably won't, but you can.
So I'm curious, what is the Daniel's Dilemma going to be this week? What do you think will happen in the next chapter?
I'm going with the thing I said earlier, which is that Shasta has to be from Archenland because the only 4 humans in Narnia are the Pevensies. That's my theory.
Okay.
But what I was going to say, and I'll still share it too, what I had written down here in my notes, is that I think Aravis was captured. I think we're going to find this out in the next chapter, that she's going to be captured because someone's going to recognize her because of her status, and they're going to bring her back to her family. That's kind of the idea. And they assume, correctly, that the horses are stolen, and so they're just taking the horses to be, but they're not taking them. Sorry, they're not taking the horses back. Whoever has the horses, because they seem to be heading north, right? They're just like, all right, well, we captured her, we sent her back, but I'm keeping the horses thing. That's my theory that we're gonna go with today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, before we go, as always, we've got some listener feedback. We got a voicemail, Phil.
Yes.
A voicemail listener. I know that makes you happy. So let's go ahead.
We've come a long way from you leaving falsetto voicemails and playing them and pretending that was someone else.
This is actually the first voicemail that isn't just me.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's actually an insult to all the people who have left those voicemails. Not me. But let me go ahead and play this.
Hi, Daniel and Phil, or Phil and Daniel. My name is Tyler McKinney, and I was just thinking about Narnia and various things, and I realized the books of Narnia are kind of like the Bible in multiple different ways, but the one way I thought is, in the Bible, you only hear, or Jesus only tells you what you need to know. He doesn't tell you everything that happened in time and history. Just like in Narnia, there's certain things that are kind of up to our imagination. There's things that we need to know, not that we want to know in there. So I thought that was just cool. Goodbye.
Well, first of all, Tornado, thank you for leaving a voicemail. That was a real treat. And second, I think that's a really good point. I think that we're supposed to get some information, but not have everything completely and thoroughly explained to us. And I think that mystery is kind of a key to our relationship with the Lord and then our relationship with literature sometimes. Mm-hmm. Your imagination is a part. It's not just a one direction thing. You as a reader are participating. You as a follower of Christ are participating in that relationship too.
Yeah, mystery plays a huge role in Christianity. I mean, there's so much of the New Testament. St. Paul writes about mysteries, right? And how the holy mystery, right? And I think one of the things that's really tough for us is, maybe it's not for other people, it really is for me, is that I want to know everything, and I hate not knowing anything for the most part. And what it leads to is a lot of frustration when there are answers that I don't have. And that's part of life. And that's actually okay. And what's really great is that we see the same thing in Narnia, right? There are mysterious parts of Aslan. There's mysterious things he does. There's mysterious parts of his character. There are many things that we just don't understand about him. In the same way that there's many things that we just can't comprehend about God. And, especially in a post-Enlightenment world, that's a faux pas, right? We don't want there to be things. We've kind of, Lewis talks about this in The Discarded Image and in Preface to Paradise Lost, that we've kind of lost our ability to say that there are things that we don't understand. This kind of the magic, the mystery, right? And that's what Lewis is getting at with some of his medieval cosmology stuff. No, Lewis didn't believe that the planets influence certain things, but he loved the way that the medievals kind of had this beauty, this kind of almost magic in their world. That they just kind of believed in. Whereas, in a post-Enlightenment world, we've kind of gone, well, no, it's not, we can't prove it, it's not this. After the, scientific revolution, all these other things, we really struggle with that. I don't know if you ever listened. I talked about that in one of our Dancing Lawn episodes where I posted one of my lectures that I gave on Lewis and myths and medievals. I got to talk a lot more about this. But I think it's Aslan is a great way, especially to introduce young readers to the idea of a character that is very mysterious. Despite the fact that he's the only character that appears in all 7 books, he is very mysterious. And really, at the end of the day, when we finish this whole series, he's one of the characters we know the least about.
Right. It's kind of like the R2-D2, but of Narnia.
Or God, but yeah R2-D2 or God, you said it, not me. Are you, can you go on the record, R2-D2 or C-3PO?
R2-D2.
Get out of here. C-3PO is my favorite character in all of Star Wars.
Yeah, R2-D2 didn't get his memory wiped, though.
That's fair. And I know that most people don't like C-3PO. I find Anthony Daniels so endearing, and I just love 3PO so much.
I was so happy for him when he got to show his face in Rise of Skywalker.
He also shows his He also shows his face in Attack of the Clones. Him and Ahmed Best, who plays Jar Jar Binks, are both at the cantina where the guy which tries to sell the death sticks to Obi-Wan. They both are there
in the background.
Yeah, they had little cameos.
I like that he got a speaking role and a close-up.
What was his speaking role, Rise of Skywalker? I haven't seen it since
he's in a ship and he's firing some stuff and he says, "Nice shooting, Lando."
No, that's the guy that plays Wedge Antilles.
That's C-3PO.
I'm pretty sure that is the guy who plays.
Oh man, this is gonna be great because you're gonna look this up live.
No, I'm pretty sure that's Dennis Lawson. Let me.
Oh man, it's gonna. I just can't wait.
Let's let listeners go ahead.
Anticipation is killing me.
Are you talking about this image right here? Hold on. Are you talking about this image right here?
Yeah, that's Anthony Daniels.
That's Dennis
That's
Lawson.
not Anthony Daniels?
That's Dennis Lawson.
Are you kidding
So
me?
everyone else got to hear you be wrong on the show. That is not Anthony Daniels.
Wow. I didn't realize that Anthony Daniels played Wedge.
Actually, funny thing, Dennis Lawson is actually related to Ewan McGregor.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
like a distinct.
And Dennis
connection.
Lawson was
It's like
asked
his
to come
uncle or
back.
something.
I don't think he has like a great relationship with Lucasfilm because he didn't come back for Force Awakens or what's the second one? Last Jedi. But he did come back for Rise of Skywalker. So yes, that's not Anthony Daniels. But thanks for playing the game. You know, Phil's so upset, just staring at his
Yeah,
computer.
I'm looking for any cameo that he's in. Oh man. Let's take all that out.
No. This is all.
Oh
staying in.
no, he plays Ashoka Tano. That's what I was thinking.
No, he
of.
does not.
He does.
Stop
Yeah, look
that.
it up.
He plays.
You want to go for just double down?
I don't believe it, so I'm not agreeing with you. All right. Well, this is when it's time for us to move on. So again, thanks Turner for the voicemail. And Phil, would you like to do our closing what do we call them? Our closing credits here?
Sure. This episode is made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support the show, you too can listen to a bonus episode each month, along with other rewards. Special thanks goes to Elias Dean, Hannah Anderson, John Marr, Emily Margaret, and Ryan Smith for supporting us at our top tiers. Thanks to you all. Do you have any listener feedback? Email us at thenarniapodcast@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 406-646-6733. We would appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts. This helps other listeners find the show and join our read-through. Thanks for coming along on this journey, and we will be back next time for Chapter.